Hey, what's up guys, Jason here. In today's video, I want to talk to you guys about a few tips you can use for your low light photography. So if you guys are ready, let's jump right into it. So the first tip that I recommend always is to pick a fast lens. What does it mean by fast lens? Anything with a low aperture, anywhere from f2.8 to f1.2. So like for example, I'm shooting right now on the 35mm G Master f1.4, and what f1.4 does and means in aperture is that it allows you to let in more light. The aperture of your camera's lens is like your iris. If I'm opening my eye nice and wide, I'm letting in a lot more light. Same thing with your camera lens. The lower the f-stop, the lower the aperture, the wider the lens blades can open, thereby letting in more light. So instead of introducing more light with ISO, you're gonna get a very grainy and noisy image that way. So the better way to do it is to lower your camera's aperture. Shoot at a fast aperture. Moving on to tip number 2, and that would be to follow the light. Okay, not in some symbolic, metaphorical type of way, but literally follow the light. Whether that's a natural light source like the stars, the moon, fire, okay, or artificial neon lights, store lights, stop lights, car lights, any light you can find at night. Those are going to be your best friend. Like for example, if you're shooting in the daytime and there are no shadows, essentially the whole image is going to be illuminated, and that's not going to make, for the best image per se, if everything is just one tone. So having shadows is going to add contrast to your image. If you flip that around, if you're shooting at night and all you see is shadows, all you see is pitch black, then again, what really are you shooting if not just darkness, right? So you want to find the light, find ways to incorporate natural light or artificial light into your image. So for me, I'm oftentimes shooting near windows, stores, neon lights. I just love how those look and illuminate my subject or image at nighttime. So those are going to be your best friend. Follow the light. Tip number 3, guys, is shoot at a minimum shutter speed. Okay, so if you still want a sharp image at nighttime, you want to shoot at a shutter speed that is around double the size of your focal length. So if I'm shooting at maybe a 50mm focal length, my shutter speed at minimum should be somewhere around 1/100th of a second, because that's twice of 50. But again, if you want to actually do a long exposure and introduce a lot of blur and get that stylistic effect, of course, slow down your shutter to a few seconds, and that's also another way to get in a lot more light. And with modern day cameras, the stabilization is so good that even like shooting handheld, at times you're able to get still a sharp, crisp image even while shooting at a slower shutter. Alright guys, next tip would be to shoot in RAW. Okay, so why do we shoot in RAW? It's to retain more data in your image, so you get more information in the highlights and the shadows. Whereas if you were to shoot in a JPEG, all of that is going to be baked into the image, so there's no bringing it back out in post. So like if I took a shot of a really dark room and I shot it in a JPEG, say I put that photo into Lightroom and I tried to bring up the exposure, it's gonna look so noisy and unpleasing to the eye. Whereas if you shot in RAW, you might be able to retain more of the detail in the shadows. So if I did raise up the exposure, it would come out much cleaner. Okay, tip number 5, guys, is to expose for the highlights. What do I mean by that? So when you're shooting out at night and you try to, say you're shooting in manual, and I try to, you know, bring in a lot of light because I can't see the image on my camera. But you know, by doing that, you're going to be altering the way how it looks in reality. So if I'm shooting a dark, moody scene and I try to bump up my ISO, try to slow my shutter speed, and shoot at a wide open aperture, sure, it might look nice and bright and clear to me, but is it necessarily going to be a good image? Probably not. So for me, to get like a real cinematic, realistic look at the same time, I'm oftentimes exposing for the highlights. Okay, another tip for you guys is to understand or know your camera's base ISO. So if you're shooting in manual and you're scrolling through your ISO, if you try to go to the lower values, especially if you're shooting on Sony, you'll reach a point to where any value below a certain number is going to have 2 bars above and below that value. If you start reaching those values, you're going to actually be eliminating and reducing your camera's dynamic range. So there's going to be, again, less detail in your shot. Sure, you will make it less bright if you're shooting in really sunny conditions, but you're not going to get the most dynamic range. So even when shooting at low light, you don't want to go below your camera's base ISO. Just stay at your camera's base ISO and you should be good. A few more tips, guys. Next one is to keep your edit simple. There's been so many times where, you know, I had a great shoot, got so excited, put the SD card into my computer, uploaded the images onto Lightroom, and I just went ham on the edit, and then before I knew it, the image just looked totally unrecognizable anymore. So don't make that rookie mistake. Learn from me. Keep the edit minimal. Again, try to keep things as realistic as how they appeared to you with how you saw it. And I'd say less is more, and you want to try to get your image as close to perfect in camera before even touching it in post. That's going to be the most ideal situation. Last tip, and this might seem like a no-brainer, but that would be to be safe. Hey guys, so I live in San Francisco, the Bay Area, one of the most photogenic, beautiful cities in the world, and even me, like, I'm hesitant to bring my camera gear out in certain neighborhoods, areas, and especially at night. So I recommend, you know, having a friend with you, keeping your head on a swivel, and, you know, just being smart. Only pack what you need and try to research the area before you go. So for me, when I'm doing my street POVs, I'm literally out there, you know, for you guys, for the algorithm, putting myself and my $1,000 of gear on the line. But, you know, if it's something you love, you're just gonna have to do it. And I don't have camera insurance yet, but it might be worth looking into in a future video. So if I ever get camera insurance, I will touch up on that and let you guys know. So that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching and all the support over the last few months. It really means a lot to me, everyone who's been commenting, liking, and subscribing. I will see you all in the next video. Thank you so much. Peace out.